It's my journey, it's your journey. You need my help and I need yours. 'Cause we are...
Hello, family. Welcome to Journeys of Faith Super Saints podcast. I am Brother Joseph, your narrator. Be sure to look at the description for special information of interest to you. Saint Dominic Savio. 5 miraculous moments in his short life, explored by Bob and Penny Lord. Miracles have always been at the heart of Catholic faith, signs that God's love and grace break into our world in the most extraordinary ways, often through the lives of his humble servants. Among these, few stories spark the imagination and stoke the fire of devotion like that of Saint Dominic Savio, a saint whose brief yet blazingly holy journey continues to inspire Catholics everywhere. At Journeys of Faith, we believe that saints such as Dominic Savio aren't relics of the past. They're living witnesses, heaven's lightning rods, drawing down God's compassion and power in the here and now. Bob and Penny Lord, recognized as EWTN's experts on Catholic saints, dedicated their lives to uncovering these powerful encounters and bringing them to you. Through tireless travel, prayer, and a relentless spirit of evangelization, they explored the miraculous, the extraordinary, and the deeply personal moments that made Saint Dominic Savio not just a model for youth, but a luminous signpost pointing all of us to the heart of the Eucharist. In the following article, we invite you to journey into 5 miraculous moments from Saint Dominic Savio's short life, revealed and celebrated by Bob and Penny Lord. Prepare to be uplifted, challenged, and called deeper into the mystery that is our Catholic faith. Whether you are a lifelong devotee of the saints, a pilgrim searching for inspiration, or simply seeking to kindle a deeper love for the Eucharist, these stories from Journeys of Faith promise a renewed sense of wonder and hope. Join us as we rediscover Saint Dominic Savio, a miracle of youthful virtue and heavenly power, through the passionate lens of Bob and Penny Lord, a lens powered by reverence, expertise, and love for Holy Mother Church. Saint Dominic Savio, a child totally given to God. There is something electrifying about the innocence and spiritual power radiating from Saint Dominic Savio's brief but luminous life. In a world that prizes accomplishment and visibility, Dominic's fame resides instead in a quiet, radical surrender to God, so complete, so authentic, that it left room for nothing else. He wasn't a founder, a great theologian, or a martyr in the traditional sense. What Saint Dominic embodied instead was the glory of a soul that refused half measures. From his earliest days, Dominic had a single goal: death rather than sin. This wasn't hollow piety, it was a North Star. He made a First Communion resolution to always keep Sunday holy, to confess and receive communion frequently, and, most radically, to choose death over even a single mortal sin. His resolve was tested in the crush of childhood play, the arguments in the Don Bosco schoolyard, and the relentless lure of the ordinary. Yet this child, fragile in health, yet strong in grace, pressed forward. His devotion to the Eucharist was the furnace of his sanctity. Dominic received communion as often as he could, spending hours in prayer before the tabernacle with a simplicity and fervor that moved even the most world-weary priests. There, kneeling before the Blessed Sacrament, Dominic would lose himself in contemplation. It was in this Eucharistic intimacy that he discerned his mission, to bring his friends closer to Christ, to offer sacrifices for sinners, and to pray for the souls in purgatory. The miraculous began to glimmer in Dominic's life, not through grand visions, but through the astounding transformations he inspired in those around him. A peacemaker by nature, he once reconciled 2 boys about to fight, standing boldly between them and insisting, "Jesus would not want you to hurt each other." His serenity disarmed conflict. His gentleness converted hearts. Those who lived with him, including St. John Bosco himself, repeatedly testified to the supernatural joy, purity, and wisdom that shone in Dominic's presence. To encounter Saint Dominic Savio is to witness what happens when a heart says yes completely to the God who is love. His miracles and heroic virtues are both a challenge and an invitation. Holiness is possible, even or especially when we are young, when we are unknown, when we say yes to God in every hidden moment. Deepen your faith with Journeys of Faith. Explore the life-changing story of Saint Dominic Savio. Are you inspired by the miraculous moments in the life of Saint Dominic Savio? At Journeys of Faith, our mission is to ignite a deeper devotion in every Catholic heart. We invite you to walk alongside Bob and Penny Lord, EWTN's trusted storytellers, as you discover the wonders of the saints, the power of the Eucharist, and the legacy of courage and holiness that Dominic Savio continues to shine. Unlock exclusive content. Dive into our extensive library of authentic Catholic resources, including rare footage of pilgrimages, shrine documentaries, books, podcast episodes, and more, all curated by Bob and Penny Lord, the Super Saints experts. Shop with purpose. Every purchase from our official store fuels our nonprofit apostolate, supports our retreat grounds, and spreads the gospel, while granting you access to collectibles and out-of-print classics. Journey with the Saints. Be part of a global Catholic family hungry for faith formation, Eucharistic miracles, and Marian apparitions. Leverage our unique mega search engine to explore hundreds of trusted Catholic shops. Visit us. Plan your pilgrimage to Holy Family Mission Grounds. Step where saints are honored. Join us for retreats or shop for heirloom Catholic gifts in person. Let Journeys of Faith empower your spiritual journey. Bring the wonders of Saint Dominic Savio and other beloved saints into your home, your prayer life, and your family today. When Bob and Penny Lord set their hearts on tracing the tender footprints of Saint Dominic Savio, there was only one destination that shimmered above the rest: Don Bosco's Oratory in Turin. For it was here, beneath the steadfast gaze of St. John Bosco, and within the humming spirit of youthful sanctity, that Dominic's short but luminous life unfolded. Upon arrival, Bob and Penny felt the pulse of history thrumming through the oratory's ancient walls. They walked the same echoing corridors that once resounded with Dominic's laughter, prayers, and sacrificial acts. The lords marveled at the humble dormitories, the very chapel where Dominic knelt in deep adoration before the Eucharist, and the classrooms where he absorbed lessons in faith and virtue from Don Bosco himself. As they paused at Dominic's relics, Bob and Penny found themselves transported. They lingered at the precise spot where young Dominic had uttered his profound promise, death rather than sin. It was here, in this crucible of the saints, that the Lords encountered tangible grace, a burning inspiration for every Catholic pilgrim. Guided by their devotion, Bob and Penny collected stories from the oratory's current custodians and those who, like them, had come searching for signs of sanctity. Through sacred art, handwritten letters, and relics suffused with history, the Lords came to understand the deep bond of spiritual fatherhood between Don Bosco and his cherished student. The oratory wasn't just a backdrop in Dominic's story. It was a living testament to God's work in young souls willing to surrender everything for Christ. The vision of the two crowns, purity and martyrdom. There's a moment early in Saint Dominic Savio's journey that still resounds throughout the Catholic world, a scene striking in its innocence and supernatural clarity. At just 4 years old, Dominic experienced a mystifying vision while at prayer, a vision that would echo like a beacon for the rest of his short, holy life. He saw two luminous crowns, each radiating with a divine brilliance. One crown was white, a symbol of purity, the other, crimson, signifying martyrdom. Drawn into this mystical experience, Dominic heard an invitation from our Lord, asking which crown he wished to choose. With the irresistible zeal so natural to the saints, Dominic answered, "I choose both." His heart, already so perfectly attuned to God's will, could grasp the deeper meaning. Purity would mark his entire life, a spotless offering to Christ. The path of martyrdom, while not realized in the traditional sense, would manifest in the daily sacrifices he embraced without hesitation. The ridicule at school for his faith, the steadfast defense of his classmates' morality, and the mockery he patiently endured out of love for Jesus. In these private moments of heroism, Dominic's sanctity was forged, not only by what he suffered, but how he suffered it. This vision of the two crowns became his spiritual directive, guiding his choices and strengthening his resolve. Fueled by the Eucharist, he pursued a martyrdom of the heart, shedding not just blood, but his entire will for Christ. This is the paradox of the saints, that the most miraculous victories often happen in the silence of our personal Gethsemanes, when purity and sacrifice become one. Dominic's First Communion, an encounter with the Eucharistic Lord. The day of Saint Dominic Savio's First Holy Communion was radiant with grace, a transformative event in the heart of an extraordinary boy. From early morning, Dominic understood something monumental was about to unfold. He had spent days preparing, fasting, praying, blotting every stain from his soul through confession. At just 7 years old, Dominic mirrored the deep reverence of saints twice his age, convinced that the Eucharist was not a mere ritual, but a life-changing meeting with Jesus himself. When the golden moment arrived, Dominic approached the altar with humility and awe, tears shimmering in his eyes. Witnesses attested to his serenity, a kind of quiet ecstasy enveloping him as he knelt to receive the body and blood of Christ. Father Culiero, his parish priest, described Dominic as transfixed in prayer and gratitude. It was not just the sacrament, but the presence of the Eucharistic Lord filling his soul with supernatural peace. From that encounter, Dominic's life clearly bore the fruits of his devotion. He privately wrote 4 enduring resolutions in his notebook that very day: to confess frequently, to honor Sundays and holy days, to make Jesus and Mary his best friends, and rather die than sin. These resolutions reveal a soul already consecrated to God, a heart burning with apostolic zeal. The Eucharist for Dominic was not a distant mystery. It was his strength, his joy, and the surest path to sainthood, a conviction he shared enthusiastically with his friends and classmates, inviting them to draw close to the altar and experience the same miracle for themselves. Guardian of the Playground, miraculous intervention during a fight. There's an electric energy in the stories that emerge from the lives of the saints, and few episodes ignite that current like the playground miracle of Saint Dominic Savio. Imagine the rough and tumble commotion of an 1850s Italian schoolyard, a setting ripe for childhood squabbles and fits of temper. Dominic, only a boy himself, stepped between 2 older classmates on the brink of a violent fight. Words had failed. Anger was about to take hold. What happens next is a testament not just to a young saint's holiness, but to the profound, extraordinary action of the Holy Spirit in those prepared to respond with virtue. Dominic, small in stature, yet massive in spiritual authority, dropped to his knees between the quarreling boys. He pulled out his crucifix, raised it high, and pleaded, "Before you strike each other, look at this and say, Jesus was innocent and died forgiving his executioners. I will try to forgive you as he forgave them." Like a sudden hush falling over the battlefield, the boys froze. Witnesses later recounted that the very air seemed to change. Rage gave way to shame and confusion. Tears welled up. The fight melted away. Kids who moments before seemed ready for blows now stood sobered, unable to lift a hand against one another under that powerful, silent witness. It's a scene alive with the grandeur of Catholic spiritual warfare, as real and tangible as any Eucharistic miracle. This was the heart of young Dominic's sanctity, not just piety for its own sake, but the kind of daring, interrupting mercy that can change lives on a dime. By standing between anger and violence, he became not merely a peacekeeper, but a living icon of the forgiveness Jesus asks of each of us, a boy following the call to sainthood in real time, right there in the dust of the playground. Healing through prayer. Dominic saves the schoolmate. Dominic Savio's life was infused with an extraordinary faith in the power of prayer, a trust so deep it moved the very heart of heaven to intervene in moments of great need. One afternoon, while at the Oratory of St. John Bosco, a grave crisis unfolded. A fellow student was suddenly struck down by a violent illness, collapsing to the floor, gasping for breath. Panic swept through the oratory. Students called out for help, and confusion reigned as the boy's condition worsened by the moment. But Dominic, ever watchful, ever compassionate, refused to give in to fear. Instead, he sprinted toward his ailing friend, knelt beside him, and began to pray with a fierce, unwavering devotion. Dominic called on the intercession of Mary, help of Christians, uttering prayers with childlike innocence and saintly fervor. His words were not showy or complex, but pure and earnest, spoken straight from a heart burning with love for Christ and for his classmates. In the moments that followed, something extraordinary happened. The sick boy's breathing eased, his body relaxed. Witnesses stood speechless as strength returned and color flushed back to the boy's face. The crisis had passed. Friends and teachers watched in awe as Dominic, with simple faith and unyielding trust in God, had seemingly invited a healing touch from heaven itself. This story, retold countless times by those who witnessed it, shines as a testament to Saint Dominic Savio's unshakable belief in prayer's miraculous power. The event was no secret. It quickly became a point of reverent conversation among students, inspiring deeper faith and underscoring exactly why Dominic was already regarded as a living saint long before his brief earthly journey ended. For Dominic, every trial was an opportunity to reveal the mercy and glory of God through humble but relentless prayer. Prophecy of Peace, warning the Pope through a dream. It was during the fever-pitched atmosphere of mid-19th century Italy, when political unrest threatened the very heart of Christendom, that Saint Dominic Savio, then just a boy, experienced a dream so vivid and unsettling that it could only be described as prophetic. In this dream, Dominic saw a world engulfed in chaos, and at its spiritual center stood the Holy Father, Pope Pius IX, surrounded by ominous threats to peace and security. Dominic, whose devotion to the Church and the Eucharist was already legendary among his peers, awoke with a profound conviction. He must deliver this warning. Guided by courage and supernatural clarity, Dominic relayed his vision to his spiritual director, St. John Bosco. Moved by the boy's sincerity, Don Bosco recognized the weight of what Dominic had seen and communicated the message directly to Rome. What makes this episode miraculous is not only the dream's uncanny sense of urgency and accuracy, but also Dominic's unwavering obedience and humility in delivering such a message at such a young age. He did not seek praise or attention. Instead, his heart raced only for the good of the Church and the salvation of souls. Catholic tradition holds that the prophecy reached Pope Pius IX, providing much-needed consolation and perhaps even influential counsel at one of the papacy's darkest hours. This mystical episode encapsulates the saintly union between childlike simplicity and supernatural wisdom, a sign that God chooses the humble to reveal his warnings and his peace. Through Dominic's prophecy, heaven's concern for the safety of the Church became brilliantly, if fleetingly, visible on earth. Mary Immaculate's Mantle, the Miraculous Medal moment. In the tapestry of Saint Dominic Savio's short, radiant life, few threads glow brighter than his encounter with the Miraculous Medal, the cherished devotion linked to Our Lady herself. As a young student, under the guidance of St. John Bosco at the renowned Oratory of Turin, Dominic was captivated by everything Marian. But one day his devotion took on a tangible, almost electrifying form. Stories recount how Dominic, barely in his teens and already burning with zeal, encouraged his classmates to wear the Miraculous Medal. He didn't merely hand them out, he shared the powerful testimony of what the medal meant, a sign of Mary's maternal protection, a promise of graces for those who approach her with childlike trust. Dominic's own faith in the medal was unshakable. On several occasions, he attributed sudden healings and conversions of heart among his schoolmates to Mary's intercession. One time, he placed the medal on the pillow of a gravely ill friend, spending the night in prayer. By morning, the boy was inexplicably improved, recovering to the astonishment of his family and teachers. For Dominic, the miraculous medal wasn't just an ornament, it was a shield, a reminder that heaven itself intervenes in our earthly struggles, especially for the pure of heart. To witness Dominic encourage other boys, many of whom would go on to speak of his gentle holiness, was to see a young apostle at work. Through Mary Immaculate's mantle, Dominic's devotion came alive, revealing that the saints don't reserve miraculous moments for the chosen few, but offer them to all who believe and trust in God's promises. Offering up suffering, the joyful acceptance of illness. Saint Dominic Savio's radiant acceptance of suffering stands as one of the most profound testaments to his sanctity. From a young age, Dominic faced fragile health and recurrent illness with a serenity that confounded those around him. Where others might rebel against pain or curse their circumstances, Dominic transformed his trials into an offering for God, embracing the Catholic understanding that suffering, when united to Christ, can become a powerful prayer. Dominic's secret was simple, yet extraordinary. He found a deep, unshakable joy in joining his pains to the sufferings of Jesus. Witnesses recount that when ill health forced him to miss classes, or when fever left him bedridden, his response was astonishing. Rather than complaining, Dominic would whisper, "I am suffering, yes, but I am suffering for Jesus, and that makes it sweet." He didn't merely endure his weakness, he offered it up as a gift. His spiritual director, St. John Bosco, marveled at how the boy would cheerfully surrender his aches, sometimes even praying aloud that his suffering might lessen the burden for sinners and holy souls in purgatory. Dominic's approach reveals a profound grasp of one of Christianity's central mysteries, redemptive suffering. He saw his illness not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. Each feverish night, each ache and pain became a chance for him to draw closer to Christ's passion and to participate, however humbly, in the redemption of souls. Such joyful acceptance did not remove the pain, but transformed it into a source of supernatural strength and interior peace. In Dominic Savio, suffering was not an obstacle, but a ladder to holiness, one he climbed with courage, trust, and a gentle smile. The company of the Immaculate and its supernatural fruits. Saint Dominic Savio's intense devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary wasn't just a matter of personal piety. It overflowed into action, inspiring those around him and igniting a supernatural fire in the hearts of his peers. Together with his cherished companions at the Oratory of St. John Bosco, Dominic founded the Company of the Immaculate. This was not some idle after-school club. Membership came with a rule book of radical self-giving, fierce love for the Eucharist, and daily acts of mercy and reconciliation. Dominic and his friends would rise before dawn to spend precious minutes before the tabernacle, often praying with such absorbed fervor that time itself seemed suspended. The company of the Immaculate members made secret vows. Every harsh word left unsaid, every act of charity offered in silence, became an offering not only to Our Lady, but for the souls of their fellow students. They policed the oratory's playground, gentle peacemakers, diffusing quarrels, reaching out with quiet kindness to the lonely or bullied, all the while keeping their identities hidden. Out of this youthful brotherhood sprang supernatural fruits that the teachers and even St. John Bosco himself could not ignore. Dominic's friends experienced sudden conversions, mysterious reconciliations, and several even reported deep interior changes after joining him in prayer. Under his influence, the oratory transformed. Quarrels diminished, discipline became easier, and even the most hardened boys softened. The true miracle was not just Dominic's heroic virtue, but the contagious sanctity that spread from one open heart to another through this small hidden band dedicated to the Immaculate Virgin. In these everyday miracles, Dominic revealed the quiet but explosive power of grace active among the young, calling them, and all of us, closer to holiness. Conclusion. Saint Dominic Savio's Miracles, a beacon for our journey of faith. Saint Dominic Savio's short life blazes with miracles that call every Catholic into a deeper embrace of Christ and his saints. As Bob and Penny Lord so passionately reveal through journeys of faith, Saint Dominic Savio embodies holiness blossoming even in youth, obedience, love for the Eucharist, and heroic virtue made tangible in our everyday struggles. His Eucharistic devotion wasn't just piety, it was a transforming fire, something at the very heart of our mission as a ministry and as part of the Cyber Apostles. In exploring these 5 miraculous moments, we glimpse the marvels God works through willing souls, inviting each of us to believe, hope, and love with fresh fervor. The living legacy of Saint Dominic Savio continues to shine from EWTN screens through journeys of faith pilgrimages, writings, and our sacred grounds, drawing countless hearts into closer communion with the Lord. Let Saint Dominic Savio's radiant faith stir your own. Visit our store to discover more resources from Bob and Penny Lord. Join us for a pilgrimage or retreat at Holy Family Mission, and let's follow this young saint's example, striving with joy and courage towards sainthood, sustained always by the Holy Eucharist, our true source and summit. Family, there is more to this post, so please see the link in the description for the rest of the article. Be sure to click the link in the description for a special news item. And since there is more to this article, finish reading and check out the special offer. Visit journeysoffaith.com website today.
It's your journey, but we won't make the trip alone, 'cause we know God will lead us home. It's our journey.